Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Jordan Oberg Show. I'm your host, Jordan Oberg. Today we are back with episode 4. Today we have a really good topic that I want to talk about, kind of like a mix of two topics is what it is. But first off, we just got out of Thanksgiving. An amazing week it was. Obviously, I didn't upload. I think Wednesday, the day I would have uploaded was the day before Thanksgiving. But I had to work on a lot of finals. I was trying to spend a lot of time with family. I was also packing. I was in Tennessee from Friday to Monday. So, I was out of state for a little bit. I had a lot going on last week, so I was just trying to make the most of it. But I'm grateful that I'm back. Very grateful that I'm back. Grateful that I'm doing this again. Hit the mic. But yeah, we're getting out of Thanksgiving, so I want to talk about being gratefulness. And this is something that I struggle with. Not necessarily about being grateful, but like emotionally feeling grateful for things. And I think that's something that I've kind of, I've talked to people about this before. It's very common. There's a difference between like intellectually being grateful and then like emotionally being grateful. But we're going to dive deep into it. But yeah, Thanksgiving just passed. It was a good week. I hope you guys ate a lot. I think the most underrated stuffing, or the most underrated food is stuffing. I said that backwards. The most underrated Thanksgiving food is 100% stuffing. Stuffing is the best, no matter what anyone says. It's my favorite. I don't know. Let me know in the comments like what you guys like eat for Thanksgiving. A lot of different families eat different foods. I'm curious. My family's very basic, so we just eat turkey Thanksgiving. Turkey stuffing. I don't know, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, all the basic white people foods. That's what we eat. So it was good though. I am grateful for that. That was good. And, always get to see family. That's always a good thing. I don't know what I liked more, the food or watching football. What was it? Like the Lions played that day versus the Packers, I think. And then it was the Bengals and Ravens, I think. I don't remember the late night game, but I do know I think those were the games that were on. I do remember watching it, but those were good games. But anyway, we're talking a lot about being grateful, being close to God. And we're kind of merging those two topics together. Like I said, this is something that's kind of been in my head since I was a child, actually. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like middle school, I'd say, I always had the struggle of realizing what being grateful really meant, right? What's the true meaning of being grateful? What does it actually mean? Does it feel like something, or is it something that you just really have to understand? And I think that all of those are all correct in a way. There are times where you feel emotionally grateful. And that's a totally real feeling. That's that's real. But then, there's sometimes where you don't feel grateful, but you're grateful. So we're going to dive into all of it. But yeah, it's really easy because when you dedicate your entire day to being grateful to something, right? Thanksgiving Day, right? You're giving thanks for the things in your life. And it's really easy to be thankful during that time of day because everyone is, right? And it's literally a day dedicated to giving thanks for the things you have, for the people in your life, for the opportunities, and, a million other things. But then the next day comes around and, it's back to your normal life again. It's back into school. It's back into work. It's back into, whatever it might be that is a part of your daily life. And, that usually consumes most of your life already. So, you spend one day being really grateful. You're around family. Everything's great. You got amazing food. You got football. And then, boom, next day is back to your normal life. Everyone's kind of back to normal. And, that's more of a society thing. I wouldn't say that's like an individual thing, That's not an individual problem. I think it's a society thing. But, I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm just saying. But yeah, you just kind of jump into the reality of life again, I guess you could say. But, we often, I feel like we treat gratitude as like a one-day thing instead of like a lifestyle. And I feel like that's part of the reason why we don't feel it deeply, right? Like I said, there's a difference between being intellectually grateful and then there's a difference between being emotionally grateful. More times than not, I am more intellectually grateful than I am emotionally grateful. There are things to where I'm 100% emotionally grateful for, but I don't feel it as deep. Does that make sense? Like, good example here. We all drive cars. Most of us, at least, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you probably drive a car. If you live in the U.S., right, you probably drive a car. And, use it every day. You get it to work, you get it to school, you get it to wherever you need to be. every single day. I couldn't tell you the last time I didn't drive my car on a day. Like, I don't walk anywhere. I don't walk to the grocery store. I don't walk to school. I don't, what I'm saying? That's not just something I do. Maybe you live in New York City. I'm sorry that you even live there in the first place, but also, you don't have a car. Maybe you walk to work or something like that. Doesn't matter. There are things in life that we use on a daily basis. Food, running water, car, bed, house, you name it. Can even be people, right? Mother, father, siblings, kids. We have those things every day at our fingertips, so it's really hard to feel emotionally grateful. So, excuse me. So that's kind of like the basis of the beginning of this message today. Because like I said, there are times where I'm more intellectually grateful than emotionally grateful. It's hard for me to feel emotionally grateful about having running water when all I've ever known and had was running water. I don't know what it's like to go without a faucet when I can just flip it up and water starts coming at my own convenience. I don't know what it's like to not live like that. So to feel emotionally grateful for it, I'm sure there are people who do, but for me specifically, and I'm sure this is different for many people, it doesn't mean you're a bad person because you don't feel it. Emotions change, right? Intellectually, I'm grateful for that. I know I'm grateful for that because I drink water every day, So I think it's, do I think that you're a bad person because you don't emotionally feel grateful for something? Absolutely not, right? Emotions change. I wouldn't feel, just because you don't feel emotionally grateful for something does not mean you're not grateful for that thing, right? So like I said, being intellectually grateful for something, I wouldn't say counts more than being emotionally grateful. I just think that it's easier to be intellectually grateful for something because we have everything we need at our fingertips, right? It's really easy to be grateful for something when you don't have it. What's that saying? It's like, what is it? It's like you're grateful for it when you don't have it. Like you have something your entire life, and then the second you lose it for just a temporary time period, and then you don't have it, you realize how grateful you are for it. Like that's a great example, right? I remember, I think it was, when was it? This was last year. My car was in the shop for like a week, and it took like forever. It was during one of the holidays, and car was not able to be driven. I was getting like repainted or something. I needed a new tire, whatever it was, and they gave me a rental car, and I was grateful for that. But like, just knowing that wasn't my car. Does that make sense? Like maybe that's like maybe that's not a great example. I don't know. I just really wanted my car back, and I was really grateful for the car that I had. Maybe that's an okay example. A better example would be like, maybe not having a car at all. Maybe a better example is not having anything at all, not having a car, right? Your car's in the shop, now you need someone to take you everywhere. Or, I don't know, there's a million other examples I can use. I'm just trying to find like the best one. But realistically, I think we can all have something in our daily lives that if we didn't have, we would feel very lost without it, whether or not you grew up with it or not. But obviously, we don't always feel grateful, even though we are. And emotional gratitude is like the hardest thing in a world full of constant comfort and stimulation. A big problem with that is social media, and I'm sure we already know that, right? I'm not going to dive too deep into that. We know that, right? Social media is the worst thing in the world. Yes, I'm still on it. I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon. But it's not even the fact of leaving it. It's more of just like giving it less time. But we're going to dive deep into that as well. But we live where, we can literally get anything we want, right? If you order it early enough, you can get whatever you want same day from Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime is what, maybe $20 a month, so it's relatively cheap. You can order anything you want as long as it's early enough. I think it's like before 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If you order something, it'll show up at your door at like 5 to 7 p.m. Like that's, what I'm saying? Like, and that's Amazon, that's food, that's entertainment. Anything you want, and, realistically, we live within a 10-mile radius of everything that we could ever need unless you live in the middle of nowhere. You probably won't feel emotionally grateful for a lot of things like that because we live in a world where everything is just so convenient and so easy to obtain to where you don't feel grateful because you don't know what it's like to live without it. And that's only going to get worse. The world's only expanding with technology and convenience and making life easier. 2023, 2022 was when AI like officially took over, right? Now everyone is using ChatGPT. There was no AI when I was in middle school. So, that was like crazy to me to think about. But now, everything in life is just so convenient, and it makes you really think what life would be like without all these, convenient things in our life. But, um, you know, sometimes even though you don't feel emotionally grateful, you might feel guilty. But I wouldn't take that as a negative thing, right? Not feeling emotionally grateful. That's completely normal, especially in our environment. I think it kind of kills the emotions tied to gratitude in our lifestyles and in our lives. This isn't just in the U.S. This is multiple other countries that have the same things that we do. Granted, I think that we're the most blessed country there is right now, but still, there are other, Canada, they can do a lot too. I'm not saying that they can't. Mexico, I'm sure they can do a lot too. You get my point. I'm sure you get my point. But we know God has blessed us, but we just don't always feel it. I think that's the big thing, right? So kind of like going over the difference between intellectual and emotional gratitude, right? And intellectual gratitude is like, okay, I know I have a good life. I know God has provided for me, stuff like that. Emotional gratitude is like, okay, I feel moved by this. I feel it in my chest and my heart. I can emotionally tie with that thing that I'm grateful for, if that makes sense. And they don't always line up because, feelings are inconsistent, right? Feelings are inconsistent. Understanding is stable, in my opinion. I think that's like one of the good, like the, I almost said gooder, one of the gooder ways, one of the better ways to look at it. A good example is like you can love someone very deeply without feeling emotional towards them every moment, right? Like, and I think that's the same with gratitude with God, right? Like, you can love someone, but you don't have to feel so emotionally deeply tied to every little thing you do, right? And that's the exact same thing with God. You can have emotional moments with your partner. You can have emotional moments with your God, or with God. But if I'm normally talking to someone I love, not that I'm not emotionally attached to that because I do love that person, but it's like, it's a normal conversation. Don't overthink it. Same thing when I'm praying to God. Am I grateful for that I can pray to God? Absolutely. Very grateful for that. But am I like, oh my gosh, I get to pray today? No, like I'm praying, like it's normal. It's casual. That's the right thing to do, Don't overthink it. You know what I'm saying? So don't overthink it. That's the big thing. Overthinking is where it really starts to like mess with your brain. Don't overthink it. It's a normal part of your life. You're grateful for it, yes, but you don't have to be so emotionally attached to it. And if you are, that's not a bad thing. But it's not a bad thing if you're not either, right? Like I said, it should be a normal thing of your life. It shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, like that deep feeling of like being grateful. I don't know. You guys get what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm trying not to be confusing about it, but I try. I write it down to explain the best I can, and then sometimes I like go off script a little bit. But culture makes gratitude really hard. Like I said, I know we talked about it briefly a little bit, but I think the biggest thing is like Instagram stories, man. People are always chasing like money and like the material wealth in the world. That's fine if you want to do that and you think that's going to make you happy. Do it. I'm sure you'll you'll realize that's not the case. Money does not make you happy, but our culture celebrates the hustle and, the ambition and getting the bag. Contentment sometimes, it looks like laziness at times, right? Our feeds on social media, you're constantly seeing like people's houses, their careers, their lives, the material wealth. And gratitude doesn't really, you're never going to feel it when you're told that you're always behind, right? You're not going to feel grateful or have gratitude for anything if you're constantly being told that what you're doing isn't enough, or you need to get out, work harder because, you need more money. Money itself isn't evil, but like the love of money is, if you love money to where you need it, there's an issue there. You need money, obviously, go work, go get a job, work hard. But in the way of like you need money to make you happy, that's an issue. But that's how most of the world is, But gratitude, I think it requires us to kind of slow down more, if that makes sense. It's something our generation's absolutely horrible at. But convenience is amazing, but it kind of blinds us to the blessing in a way, because like I said, I mean, it's hard to be grateful for something when it's so convenient. Like, I can literally take out my phone right now, Uber Eats or DoorDash food to my house in the next 15 minutes and have food at my doorstep, to where there are starving people in Africa who would literally, they will kill someone to even have a drop of food. My church just went on a missions trip for our high schoolers to Dominican Republic. I obviously didn't go because I'm not in high school, but I saw a lot of the pictures and stuff like that. It just kind of had me reflecting recently. I think it's actually great too that they do it around the same time as Thanksgiving, because it really does show you like how grateful you need to be for things like that. I've never been on a missions trip. I do want to go on one, but like kind of just seeing that from a picture and a video standpoint of them going to the Dominican Republic and interacting with those kinds of people and that different lifestyle and way of life, I think it definitely opens up your eyes to like to that like to how different the cultures and lifestyles are. Like, those people literally would kill someone to have any sort of food, and we can just do whatever we want. And even when we get the food, sometimes we just waste it and don't even eat it, kind of thing. Like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. But I think, gratitude, it definitely connects us to God. I mean, that's an obvious one. It's definitely a doorway. When you practice gratitude, like intentionally, though, you do notice God more. You notice his fingerprints in a way everywhere, right? That's like a metaphor, obviously. But, people, how people are, they'll like pick apart everything. But you get my point. You see God's fingerprints. You see his blueprints. You see him actually working in the small things, like safety, opportunities, jobs, relationships, comfort, stuff like that. And, I think gratitude, it teaches trust. And when you look back and see how God came through before, you're less anxious about tomorrow and the week ahead and whatever it might be that's ahead. Gratitude shifts your mindset too a little bit. Instead of thinking that I earned this, it's like, God gave me this, because, God can give you a lot of things, but he can also take away a lot of things as well. And so I think it's important to show our gratitude for the things that we do have before, there are going to be things in life that we won't always have, right? For example, our life itself, we will not always be here, right? I don't think I would want to always be here anyway. Could you imagine if we lived to like 600 years old? Like, that would be miserable. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this world sucks, right? I'm only 20. I've been here for 20 years, and this world's scary. I wouldn't want to be here for 600 years. But, everything in life is temporary, so just be grateful for what you do have before either A, you lose it, or two, you don't have it anymore, including your own life. But I think it creates humility. Obviously that's I think having humility is a good trait or characteristic to have as a Christian, or just in general as a good person. But when I'm grateful, I remember who the source is, and I think it pulls me closer to him. And I think that's in agreement with everyone too that is a Christian and tries to really connect on a deep level when it comes to being grateful for things that they have. But I mean, now this is where we kind of shift into like the gratefulness to being close to God, right? We kind of shift over to like, why don't we feel close to him, right? And sometimes we think, oh, it's because like God moved, but in reality, it's because we moved. And I mean, when you sit and stop and look at your own life and how far you've gotten in the last year, in the last few months, even in the last week, you could have a really busy 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and a lot change in that time frame. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, sometimes I think one of the biggest things in our generation is we only pray when we need God. That drives me absolutely to the wall. Some of my friends, they're really religious when they, I don't like using the word religion because religion is like man-made. Spiritual? Let's say spiritual. They're really spiritual, including myself. Like, this isn't me knocking on my friends or people. I do the exact same thing sometimes, and this is good. I like to talk about it because a lot of what I talk about too has to do with my life. I'm emotionally tied to things in my life, so the things that I can relate to, I like to speak about a lot. So this is one of them. But sometimes, myself included, with my friends, we often We only pray when we need God. We pray when we are in trouble. Whatever it is, we're really spiritual when things go wrong, but when things go right, we're living the dream. Everything's going great. Where is he? We just kind of throw him off to the sides, like, God, I don't need you right now. That's basically what we're doing. You know, and that's not really, your relationship with Christ and when you pray should be a monologue, not a dialogue. So when you're praying, like I said, it should be a monologue, not a dialogue, not a business transaction. Does that make sense? Like, hey, God, listen, I need you here, but don't worry. Next week when I'm doing all right, you can, you won't be in my life. I'll be doing my own thing. And that's the biggest thing. That's like super, super big, because you can be really spiritual in the moment when you're not doing great. And that's good. You're supposed to be. But who are you when you're not doing bad? Like, who are you when you're doing great? Do you still pray as often? Do you still pray as much? Or is it like a short, quick prayer? Is it as meaningful? Stuff like that. But I think those are really important. I think we put things in our daily lives above God. I don't know. I mean, you guys can look at your life yourself and know, what you put your most time into. I love it when people say, like, I just don't have enough time to pray, or I don't have enough time to read my Bible. I think it's funny. It's funny. I like it. Well, I don't like it. I think it's funny, though, because it's a lie. You were made, if you claim that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, then you know that you do have enough time. You're just lazy and you don't want to, right? Now, sometimes we just get carried away, and that's fine, as long as we make an adjustment. If you don't make an adjustment, you're lying to yourself, you're being lazy, and you just don't want to do it. And that's an honest truth that we have to have with ourselves, right? We were put on this world to worship him and to spread his name. So to say that you don't have enough time is a lie. That's a lie. And again, I think that's a form of laziness, because we were put on this earth to worship him, to give him thanks, to give him the glory, to spread his word. And then when we sit there and say, well, I don't have enough time, that's like, well, then you're not living the way that Christ intended you to be. How much time would you, if everything else in life, if you put that much time dedicated to the Holy Spirit, how much more faithful would you be? How much more of a person of faith would you be? How much nicer would you be? How much more grateful would you be for the things that you have? And I think that's really important. You know what I'm saying? To think that you don't have enough time is crazy. That means you're putting the worldly stuff over the Holy Spirit. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's, it's okay if you acknowledge it and then change. But if you don't change, that's when the issue happens, right? So to say that you don't have enough time, you're lying to yourself. No matter how busy your schedule is, you're lying. Coming from me, who used to be extremely busy, and I used the excuses, I just don't have enough time, I lied to myself. I did. I was lazy, and I was too focused on focusing on the world. That's my fault. You have to change. That's just something you have to change. But if you want God to feel real, you have to make space for him to be real. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you, so honest with you. And again, this is coming from me, who has done this multiple times. If you never read your Bible but pray all the time, and you suffer with not knowing, I wouldn't say suffer, but like not know if like God is real and he's like really living in me, that's your fault, right? You have to read the Bible. He literally gave you the answer to life, and you're just like ignoring it, and you're only praying. The main way God speaks is through his word. So you have to read the Bible to know if he's real, or to know if he's there, all that stuff. I mean, you can't just go to church once or twice in your lifetime, pray every once in a while, and think that you're going to be all right, because you're not, And that's another reason why people don't really feel him. A lot of atheists, that's the big thing too. I don't know. I don't think enough atheists give God a chance, because with anything in life, you can't just, walk up to something and be a pro, right? Whether it's a sport, whether it's a job, you can't just walk in day one and be a pro and know everything. That's not how that works, especially with relationships with people, right? So, and, God having a relationship with him, to sit there and say we don't feel him and then not engage with him, it's crazy. It's a crazy way of living. I don't know. But if we put the same effort into God as we did our phones, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, the gym, death scrolling, watching TV shows and movies, and working long hours, and there's a lot of factors into working. That's another topic. But if I gave him even a fraction of that, how much closer would I be? How much more real would I feel? How much more grateful would I be? Stuff like that. I don't think God's distant. I just think we're distracted at the end of the day. I think we're more distracted than we are putting in time and effort into him. And I think that's why that feeling is so absent for us in today's world, in today's society, in today's environment. So what do you do about it? Well, obviously, read your Bible is number one, but that's all. Everyone always says that. So I'm going to give you like some direct things that you can do. Helps me to every night before I go to bed, I try and read a chapter or just like specific parts of the Bible that maybe correlate with my life the most to help me out. Even if it's 10 to 15 to even 20 minutes a day, it's fine. You don't have to spend 2 hours before bed to get into the Word. You absolutely can, but you don't have to. But each morning or night, name 3 things God did for you that day. When you pray, I incorporate this in my prayer. So every single time I pray, and I pray a lot throughout my day. I pray in the middle of class, sometimes in the middle of tests, every single morning and every single night, of course. Before I even pray, I give him 3 things I'm grateful for. Very simple things too. It doesn't have to be, out of the ordinary or out of the crazy. It doesn't have to be out of the craziness of your mind. But like I'll say, okay, I'm grateful for my car as I'm driving to school. I'm grateful for my family that I live with. I'm grateful that I have running water. I'm grateful that I have a bed. I'm grateful that I can shower. I have access to a shower every single day. I'm grateful for the house I live in, no matter how big or small it is. Things like that. I'm thankful for opportunities. I'm thankful for the friends that I have. I'm thankful for the church that I go to. I'm thankful for the mentors and leadership that I have at my church. I'm grateful for the college age groups at my church. I'm thankful for the friendships I've made at the church to have outside of the church and be able to get close with those people. I'm grateful for those environments. I'm grateful for things like that. And I give them 3 things every single time before I pray, and then I get into my prayer, to let them know. And to kind of like a reassurance thing. It's a small conversation. And, it does. You really do kind of reflect on it every once in a while of how grateful you are for those things. Before you wake up, when you wake up, before you do anything, give God your first 5 minutes. Don't scroll on Instagram. Don't scroll on TikTok. Open up the Bible app. The Bible app is completely free. And you could put like a little widget on your main screen. That's literally what's on my phone. Do I have my phone on me? I don't even have my phone on me. I don't even know where it's at. But, put up the widget on your main screen and read the Bible really quick. Read the verse, read that little chapter it comes from. But turn routine moments into prayer, driving, eating. I don't want to say during a test, but, walking to class maybe is a better alternative for that. But I try to make those like check-ins with God, Please, please, please replace comparison with reflection, by the way. Instead of thinking, well, I don't have what they have, look at what God has brought me through. Look what God has given me, But end your day gratefully. Thank God not only for what he gave you, right, but also what he's protected you from and what you'll never know. Do you ever like look around and like maybe like, what did God protect me from today? What was an inconvenience in my life that maybe was a convenient thing? Have you ever were you ever running late and then hit traffic because of a car accident and maybe well, maybe if I left 2 minutes earlier, even maybe a minute earlier, that maybe could have been me. Thank you. But, gratitude always leads you back to God, right? And I think that's the important part. And I think that's, the main point of this whole message today is, re-emphasizing that, gratitude is not just a feeling, but it's a lens you kind of choose to look through. And, if you don't feel close to God, don't beat yourself up about it, right? Start by being aware. Start by being intellectually aware that God is there. And, gratitude is the first step back to him. Always remember that. And listen, life is always going to be loud. It's always going to be distracting. It's always going to be overwhelming, but God is always steady. He's always right there, ready to listen to you. So even if you don't emotionally feel him, pray to him, and trust me, like I said, you won't always emotionally feel it, and that's okay. That's normal. All right, he's still there even though you don't feel him. That's totally normal. But yeah, I think that's the main point of the message today. That's all I got for you guys. Very, very grateful that I was able to get back into this. I know it's been a minute. So I'm grateful that I'm back here. Grateful that I'm back talking to you guys. Grateful for the few hundred of you on social media that follow us and, pay attention to what we do. A lot of you guys go to my college or my university. Built some cool connections with you guys. I'm grateful for that. And, I don't know. It's just cool looking back and, being grateful for what you have and what's around you. And I think the biggest thing before I end is looking back. I'm a junior in college right now. And it's only been 3 years, but it has been the quickest 3 years of my life. And I've met and talked to so many people. And I think it's really cool and interesting to see that no matter what relationship I have with anyone, whether they hate me, they love me, or it's just a random, hey, what's going on? Because I had you in my class one time and I've never forgot your face. I am grateful for those. And I think it's awesome that out of all the people in the world, out of all the places in the world, out of everywhere I could have been born, I've met you. And I think it's really cool to kind of look back and look at all the people I've met throughout school, high school and college, and to be grateful for those relationships. Like I said, no matter what the relationship was, whether it was bad or good or neutral, I'm grateful. If you're watching this and you know me from school of any sort, I'm grateful for you. Hit me a message whenever, let's reconnect or something. Reconnect with those that you haven't talked to in a while. It's a good thing. But that's all I have for today for episode 4. I look forward to next week again. We are uploading every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock at night. So we are Eastern Standard Time. So every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock, join in for the Jordan Oberg Show. But that will be all for today. God bless you guys. I challenge you to find 3 things every single day that you're grateful for. But other than that, may God bless you and watch over your family. God bless you guys.